invite you now to join in the congregational response that will appear on the screen. Left will be your left and right will be your right. Let the earth teach us.
Earth teach us. Earth teach us suffering, as old stones suffer with bearing.
Earth teach us caring, as parents who secure their young.
Earth teach us courage, as the tree which stands alone.
Earth teach us limitation, as the ant which crawls on the ground.
Earth teach us freedom, as the eagle which soars in the sky.
Earth teach us resignation, as the leaves which die in the fall.
Earth teach us new life, as the seed which rises in the spring.
Teach us to forget ourselves, as melted snow forgets its form.
Earth teach us to remember kindness, as dry fields weep the rain.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Keely Schneider. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees here at All Souls and want to introduce our offering today. For those of you who may be new to the church or aren't aware, 1 week or one Sunday out of the month, we pass our plate to help support the primary budget, our general operating budget. And I know that sounds a little boring, so I thought I would very quickly share with you one thing that was really exciting for me this morning. So this is definitely off the cuff because I just came from that meeting, is to share with you some of the ways that we support our relational groups. These are the groups that you've probably heard of. We've got Demeters, we have Raging Bulls, we have a yoga group, we have a Tai Chi group, which I didn't even know about and I'm very excited about. But all of these groups in different ways need support from the church. And sometimes that's just space. Space and some heat, right? To do a little hot yoga, which has been difficult lately. But those things do take our general operating funds. They do require the board through the budget to support that, those relational groups. Some of them need childcare, and that's something that we would like to support, I think, as a church. So I wanted to share just that little nugget with you today because it was something that really, sat with me this morning as we were discussing the wins and the wonderful things that our relational groups are doing. So I invite you today, whether you are a pledging member at this time, wonderful. We love the pledges because that helps us budget at the board level, but throw in a little extra today. That little extra bit may be the thing that's needed for a new parent to be able to come to a group in the evening because we're able to provide childcare. If you aren't a pledging member, I encourage you to do so, but definitely show your support today and put something in our plate. And if you have not yet, a little wink wink to our annual meeting coming up in May, if you have not made a contribution of record, that is what will allow you to vote and have your voice heard at our meeting. Please do so. You can do that today. Put your money in an envelope and make sure your name is on the outside. That will make it a contribution of record for our purposes. Thank you again for all you do for our church, and the offering will now be graciously given and received.
In time of silver rain,
forth new life again. Green grasses grow, and flowers lift their heads, and over all the plain the wonder spreads of life, of life, of life. In time of silver rain, the butterflies lift silken wings, and trees put forth new leaves to sing in joy. Beneath the sky in time of silver rain, when spring and life are new.
Now let's join in our words of dedication for this offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to a mission at the heart of this congregation, to create this respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create a just and compassionate society.
Dirge Without Music by Edna St. Vincent Millay. I am not resigned to the shutting away of loving hearts in the hard ground. So it is, and so it will be, for so it has been, time out of mind. Into the darkness they go, the wise and the lovely. Crowned with lilies and with laurel they go, but I am not resigned. Lovers and thinkers, into the earth with you. Be one with the dull, the indiscriminate dust, a fragment of what you felt, of what you knew, a formula, a phrase remains, but the best is lost. The answers, quick and keen, the honest look, the laughter, the love, they are gone. They are gone to feed the roses. Elegant and curled is the blossom, fragrant is the blossom, I know, but I do not approve. More precious was the light in your eyes than all the roses in the world. Down, down, down into the darkness of the grave gently they go, the beautiful, the tender, the kind. Quietly they go, the intelligent, the witty, the brave. I know, but I do not approve, and I am not resigned.
This reading is Conrad Sieber's Gravestone from Spoon River Anthology by Edgar Lee Masters. Not in that wasted garden where bodies are drawn into grass that feeds no flocks and into evergreens that bear no fruit. There, where along the shaded walks vain sighs are heard and vainer dreams are dreamed of close communication with departed souls. But here, under the apple tree I loved and watched and pruned with gnarled hands in the long, long years, here, under the roots of this northern spy, to move in the chemic change and circle of life into the soil and into the flesh of the tree and into the living epitaph of redder apples.
Now, let us embrace our connection to the earth, which is not only our cradle and our home, but also our sepulcher. In this, we are most surely all kin to one another in the human family, beyond divisions of race or nation, riches or privilege, age or gender or faith. We are one with all humanity, who mourn together the loss of those we love and live in the knowledge of our shared mortality, with the judgment that in the end, the only measure of our words and our deeds will be the love we leave behind when we're done. It is here on this earth that we must make justice, and believing in freedom, be restless until it is manifest among us, even in the awareness that our time is finite and our efforts always partial. I invite you to come forward and receive upon your hand the signs of ashes and dust, as a claim and embrace of this life in this time, in this world, through the acceptance that you also will one day, at the end of striving, return to the earth's unending cycle. Let's have everyone come down the side aisles and then turn to the liturgists at either end of the table. Hold out your hand, and one person will give you ashes, and the other nearer to the center will give you dust. If you wish, you may reply to their blessing with some form of affirmation, such as "so be it," or "blessed be," or "amen," or "true that," whatever works for you. Then return to your seat down the center aisle. When everyone who wishes has received the signs, the service will continue. I'll invite my fellow liturgists up now.
Ashes to ashes, this earth is all finished.
Dust to dust, may the earth one day receive.
cried, and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. When you were born, you cried, and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. When you were born, you cried, and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. When you were born, you cried, and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. The world cries and you rejoice. The world cries and you rejoice.
My father, whose ashes we interred at Arlington National Cemetery last week, was an officer in the Navy and the Naval Reserve, and spent his career working for the Naval Research Laboratory. He never actually spent very much time at sea, but images of ships nevertheless call him to mind, including this sonnet by May Sarton entitled, My Father's Death. After the laboring birth, the clean, stripped hull glides down the ways and is gently set free. The landlocked launched, the cramped made bountiful. O grave, great moment when ships take the sea. Alone now in my life, no longer child. This hour and its flood of mystery where death and love are wholly reconciled launches the ship of all my history. Accomplished now is the last struggling birth. I have slipped out from the embracing shore, nor look for comfort to maternal earth. I shall not be a daughter anymore. But through this final parting, all stripped down, launched on the tide of love, go out full grown. I shall not be a daughter anymore. At this age, I suppose it's time to take my place as the senior generation, with no one standing between me and the prospect of mortality anymore. Time for me to become the carrier of our accumulated wisdom, such as it is. I have, after all, been rehearsing for this role for quite a while now. Time to be launched on the tide of love, full grown, into the wide universe that is the ocean we travel, here on our blue boat home. It feels like a cultural as well as a personal bereavement, as if adults are no longer in charge of the world in general, never mind my own family system. It's probably always like this, I imagine. The sense that while I was happy to be in charge of certain aspects of life on this globe, It was someone else's responsibility to fit all the pieces together, to give out assignments, to make sense of the whole thing. Now, I'm aware that it has been left in my hands, our hands, and here we are, all mystified together. Annie Dillard describes this sensation in her book, Holy the Firm. She writes, "There were no formerly heroic times. There was no formerly pure generation. There is no one here but us chickens, and so it has always been. A people, busy and powerful, knowledgeable, ambivalent, important, fearful, and self-aware. A people who scheme, promote, deceive, and conquer, who pray for their loved ones and long to flee misery and skip death. It is a weakening and discoloring idea that rustic people knew God personally once upon a time, or even knew selflessness, or courage, or literature, but that it is somehow too late for us. In fact, the absolute is available to everyone in every age. There never was a more holy age than ours, and never a less. Who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord, or who shall stand in his holy place? There is no one but us. There is no one to send, nor a clean hand, nor a pure heart on the face of the earth, nor in the earth, but only us. A generation comforting ourselves with the notion that we have come at an awkward time, that our innocent fathers are all dead, as if innocence had ever been. But there is no one but us. There never has been. It is this, more than anything else, that I bring away from my father's obsequies. The realization that our elders were, in truth, no wiser or stronger or better than we are. They had more experience in the days when we had less. They had gifts and opportunities which they variously seized or fumbled. They were as baffled and complicit and unprepared as we imagine ourselves to be. And it is our watch now, because there is no one else. What does it mean then for us to celebrate the earth? To set aside a day to acknowledge this globe as the literal ground of our being, which modern theologians have offered as an adequate definition of God. Have we come full circle back to the day when every river and mountain was thought to be alive with sacred spirit, animated with consciousness and intent? I think we have too much science for that, and too much self-awareness. It is clear that we are the ones who attribute personality, who are programmed to imagine the world as a reflection of ourselves, to assume that the natural world thinks as we think and feels as we feel. No. The animism of our ancestors will not serve us now. And yet we have too much science and too much self-awareness to believe that ours is the only truth, the only thought, the only will, the only well-being that matters. We are not the one live spirit wandering in a dead world of objects to consume or destroy according to our impulse. We are woven into a fabric more complex than our thought has yet imagined.
At our most cellular level, we are cooperative assemblies of creatures. At a planetary scale, we are part of an organism that either thrives or decays as a whole. The mechanical reductionism of our materialist predecessors will not serve us either, not if we want a future for our children. It is not enough to praise and appreciate the beautiful and generous complexity of the earth as if we were deciding to give it 5 stars on Amazon.com. Earth Day is an opportunity to reclaim humility, literally our connection to the soil, to being the humus that is the flesh of this planet, the substance out of which our bodies arise and into which they dissolve sooner or later. I know, says Millay, but I do not approve. Yes, the roses are beautiful, elegant and curled and fragrant, the roses that arise out of the dust into which we shall melt, and the ashes that will be all that is left of us. But some part of the human condition is never reconciled to that thought. Some part of us will always be willing to trade all the roses of past, present, and future for the light in one pair of loving human eyes. Yes, we know it, and we know there is nothing to be done about it, but some part of us will never accept it. I know, but I do not approve, and I'm not resigned. We would not be the human creatures that we are if that resistance to oblivion was not part of our very DNA. And yet neither would our shared humanity be what it is if we refuse to recognize that we are indeed dust, and unto dust return. Spiritual traditions down the ages and around the globe have taught that we humans squander life until we realize that it is finite, that we become aware of the preciousness of life, both in ourselves and in all our fellow beings, only when we understand that it is a temporary gift, uncertain of duration and irretrievable once lost. The humanist philosopher Robert Ingersoll once speculated that it may be that death gives all there is of worth to life. If those we press and strain against our hearts could never die, perhaps that very love would wither from the earth. Maybe this common fate treads from out the paths between our hearts the weeds of selfishness, and I should rather live and love where death is king than have eternal life where love is not. If Earth Day does not remind us that to be human is to be of the humus, one impermanent strand in the ever-shifting, interdependent web of this material world, then it has failed of its purpose. What we are called to do in order to become spiritual grown-ups is to learn to imagine that impermanence without despair. Reflecting on the classic phrase, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, Jill Haberlin, a UU from Minnesota, wrote this: I've never been quite comfortable with the dryness of this expression. Moreover, it always seemed somehow slightly demeaning. Don't go putting on airs. Don't expect too much. Dust to dust is all we are. But if I take those words and just add some water, everything changes. From out of the life-giving, carbon-sequestering, precious soil of the earth, made rich by eons of life abundance cycling on before you, you are generously made. And to that home your vibrant life shall return, to be gratefully received. This is the same aspiration expressed by the message of Conrad Sieber, who asked to be buried not in the formal graveyard of Spoon River Town, where no cows are allowed to graze on the grass, and the manicured evergreens grow no fruit, and people dream of an artificial immortality, but rather in the orchard, among the roots of the apple trees that he tended and nurtured in life. His wish is to return to the dust of the earth, to move in the chemic change and circle of life, into the soil and into the flesh of the tree, and into the living epitaph of redder apples. I shall not be a daughter anymore. It is my watch now, yours and mine. Let this Earth Day recall us to our responsibility for the fate of the planet we share, for there is no one more competent in whose hands we can leave it. We are, in fact, no less wise or noble or resigned to our fate than those who came before us. There is within us, as it was within them, a refusal to approve of this mortality business, a conviction that trading love and laughter for scented roses or redder apples is not a fair bargain. It is not, of course, but the reality is that we are in no position to haggle. We are of the earth, and the earth will have us in the end. All we can do is let that awareness be our incentive to cherish love and laughter and life for the moment that it is ours. We can let it remind us to live so that when we die, the world cries for the loss of the light in our eyes. And yet, we have cause to rejoice in our return to the soil, to the humus that is the source of our humanity, to the substance of the earth, to the circle of life, to the flesh of the tree, to rejoice in the promise of redder apples in days that shall come. And so, let us rise and sing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fires of commitment, For all these we carry in our minds and hearts until we are together again. So let there be imagination without tyranny. Let there be creativity without malice. Let there be excellence without perfection. Let there be psalms and songs to fill the air. And let us find communion in a radical justice, a radical freedom, and a radical peace. So be it.